Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Hare Krishna, I'm Rajarshi Das. Welcome to Hare Krishna today. On today's program, we have a special guest with us. His Holiness Bhakti Vasudev Maharaj, born in Nigeria, now teaching the science of Krishna consciousness all over the world. Maharaj, welcome to Hare Krishna today.
It's my pleasure being here.
Maharaj, since you've been teaching spirituality all over the world, perhaps you can tell our viewers a bit about what exactly you're trying to communicate. You've been visiting government ministers. It's your specialty to lecture to university students who you see as the future leaders of our nation. Could you please tell us what urge you have? What is there that you are trying to share or communicate to the leaders, the future leaders, or people in general?
Yeah, that's a nice question. My major concern has been that the world is experiencing so much of topsy-turvy in terms of the social structure, in the political arena, economic, and whatever, even the domestic homes. Therefore, my major option is to be able to reach out, the elites, high-profile entities in society, and of course, students and women. Why the young ones and the women? Because especially women are the carriers of culture. And according to Lord Krishna, he mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita when there is a women degradation, then the future of that society holds very dismal. And so what I do in my relationship with people in terms of reaching out to them, share what I have with them, is that I relate the philosophy or the Vedic philosophy to them based on their background, in a language they can understand, in a manner they will be able to absorb, and of course in a very palatable and juicy way. Because no one actually likes hard knocks. And something may be even a bitter truth, but if we are able to transmit that bitter truth in a very accommodating way, in a very palatable way, then people will actually be appreciative of what we are sharing. I mean, it's unlike, when we have a high philosophy and we want to share with people and then they don't seem to be able to comprehend what we are saying. It doesn't make any sense. Therefore, one of the major things I do is to be able to understand the background of the person I'm going to be able to deal with. How and why? Because if I meet someone, or even before I meet someone, or even if I meet a group of people, what basically I try to do is to be able to see what is their background, so that I know how to relate with them, so that I know how to pass on the information, so that I know how to share what I have with them. Take for instance, when we met with the Prime Minister last week, he's someone who is very open-hearted, and believe it or not, we were talking, things based on his experience and my experience in religion and in leadership, and especially in leadership and organizational behavior. So the important thing is that if we know someone's background, what his interests are, and then we'll be able to relate the Vedic philosophy to him, or be able to share what we have in the Vedic tradition with that person, based on what he could appreciate, or how he's going to be able to digest that. And as a professional, because I'm also a professional teacher, I have my master's in education and philosophy. So we are taught all of these stuffs in the academy, how to deal with people, how to be able to start relating what you have to people. Because learning itself begins with what is knowable, or what you have to deal with the situation practically, what the person is already abreast of first. If you start with you start with the known, then you can gradually go into the unknown. And so this is the techniques that I use in trying to reach out people, and it's been very successful. And therefore, for instance, if I meet someone who is not conversant with the Vedic philosophy, I mean, I basically will have to figure out what his background is. If he's an economist, and then I will relate economic or Vaishnava or Varnashram economy, deal with him in that way. And this is very essential for us as scholars of the Vaishnava philosophy, and everyone should actually see how to be able to relate to practical realities of the day, and in that way, because people want their problems to be addressed. And as far as the Vedic philosophy is concerned, it's all encompassing. And people out there, they have lots and lots of issues to deal with. So we don't allow their issues to actually generate to problems before we address them. And if even they do have problems, we don't want their problems to generate into crisis. And therefore I travel all over the world, for instance, and I go to academic conferences, I present papers at academic conferences, I address the students, I give faculty lectures in most places I go to in universities. And of course, also I have time for the general mass of people, the devotees in our community, in our temples, and I try to have a good time with them. I relate with them as much as I can on a friendly level. Because also, when you have to be a teacher, for instance, if you treat all of your students like zombies, no one is going to appreciate you, no matter how erudite you are. And so, those who are actually in this field of sharing and caring for people in general, rooted in Vaishnava philosophy, we are very much aware of the need of society. And what we do is that if even people tend to identify with their bodies, at least we have to relate the Vedic philosophy to them in a way that they will be able to appreciate that the whole problems that are actually encompassing the planet are rooted in crisis identity. And so if people hear this, they want to really figure out, what do you mean by what the problems that we have is rooted in Christ's identity? Because that's what they cannot understand.
Maharaja, sometimes, like, we have viewers in different countries, St. Lucia, Trinidad, Guyana. Sometimes people, they tend to identify people with different bodies, different religion, different traditions. Perhaps you can explain to our viewers how truth of the self, truth of God is beyond bodily designations. In other words, sometimes people they may think, but your origin is Africa. What have you got to do with this? This sounds like Hindu thing which Indian people follow. So could you explain how truth is not really confined to, some bodily designation or label or something like that? Yeah. How, in other words, why did you pursue something that doesn't seem to be of, or that seems more to be of something like Hindu origin or so?
Yeah, that's a nice point you raise. And let's look at it like this. For instance, Western education. Tell me, Western education is all pervasive in society. You go to developing countries, even in Asia, in Africa. I mean, these are, even the they're supposedly colonial masters. They don't want them. They don't want to do anything with them because of the issues that have cropped up in the past. But all over the world, Western education is all pervasive. So we may say, well, Western education is not supposed to be for everyone. So why are you pursuing medical studies? But if you are pursuing medical studies, eventually you're going to emerge or become a medical doctor. So being a medical doctor has no limitations in terms of environment. You can really operate anywhere. And so in a similar way, Krishna consciousness is not limited to the walls and boundaries of any environment or any community. Because God is not an Indian God, it's not a Hindu God. I mean, when we say Krishna consciousness, we're talking about Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma implies the eternal duty of the Jiva Atma, the spirit soul, to God. And the spirit soul is encased within these bodily tabernacles. And so, I may have a black body, maybe born in Africa by African parents of African descent. Someone may be born in America, and the soul is the same. And so the relationship with God is also the same. And for us to identify people based on their color, it is irrational, because any responsible, any reasonable person will understand that the four basic activities that are going on in society, like we have to eat, we have to sleep, we have to defend ourselves, and the majority of people, they have to have a family. You tell me which community that these functions are exclusively related to that community, or they are all pervasive activities. And therefore, in a similar way, the soul by nature is a servant of God. And whether you are an American, you are a European, you are an Indian, you are an African, these are just different external circumstances which do not bear any genuine inference to the real reality, that is the relationship of the internal soul to God. And therefore, if even one is born in Africa, you have that pristine identity of being a spirit soul. If you are born in Guyana, for instance, you have an identity of being a spirit soul. Like here in Guyana, we find that it's a multicultural country. There are black bodies, Indian bodies, etc. But the identity, the spiritual identity is the same for everyone. And if you understand our spiritual identity, that's what I refer to as the root cause of the problem, the ignorance. Our ignorance of our spiritual identity is the root cause of the problem. And therefore we tend to discriminate even with religious practitioners. How this, I'm from this religion, or from that religion, or I'm from this tribe, or I'm from this race. There is only one human race. As simple as that. And we have also one spiritual race, that we are spirit souls. Simple. And so if we confront the reality of the day, not talking about relative truth, because see, there is absolute truth and there is relative truth. You see, relatively speaking, I'm in Guyana for the past 5 days. But then, again, relatively speaking, I'll be leaving Guyana tomorrow. But then the point is that there is an absolute reality. The absolute reality is that I'm a spirit soul, part and parcel of God. You are a spirit soul, part and parcel of God. And everyone else is a spirit soul, part and parcel of God. That is the absolute reality. And that we are supposed to be committed to the cause of service of God. And if we identify that absolute reality and we're committed to that, all the other relative truths become subservient to the absolute reality. And therefore, we don't need to create some hassles or whatever based on the relative truths. And the relative truths will always be there, but they're just temporary.
Maharaj, would you say that problems, chaos in the world today is lack of knowledge of that absolute paradigm or dimension you're speaking about? Would you say that lack of that absolute knowledge is the cause of people trying to exploit and the reaction, because people don't tend to think in terms of reaction or the chaos is being due to our ignorance or so? So would you attribute that to not having clear understanding of that absolute knowledge?
Yeah, that is just the undisputable fact. Because I tell you one story. In 2005, I was at the North Carolina Political Science Association in the USA. I'm also a member of the North Carolina Political Science Association. And as a leadership, an organizational change scholar, I go to conferences and present papers, publish in journals, etc. And one of the intriguing experiences I had with one professor at North Carolina Political Science Association was that actually the president of the North Carolina Political Science Association asked the professor to house me. So I was with him, and the night before we went to sleep, we had some short interaction. And And this is a professor of political science he's been there as political science professor for 20 years. And, we had some short interaction. I was also going to present a political science paper rooted in Vaishnava philosophy. So we had some short interaction, but I didn't know that it impacted on him so much. He was asking, just some simple questions about, life after death, actions and reactions and all this. Perhaps he had heard of some of these things. And so he was so much stimulated that he told me he had never had a chance of meeting a monk, not to talk of sleeping in the same apartment with a monk. So he was stimulated, he wanted to ask something. Now, after that interaction, you know what happened? When we left that, when we dispatched from that conference, we spoke on the phone because he wanted me to come and see his family. And we spoke on the phone, and you know what he told me? He said, ask Vasudev. He said, as a professor professor of political science for over 20 years, he thought he knew everything in this world. But then he commented that, but after meeting you, I realized I don't know anything. And this is a political science professor. He's been invited, to Russia, to Africa, to Europe for, consultancy and other things. But what is it that we even spoke on? The simple things about, what is the cause of the problems in this world. And those things are not, they're not revealed to even the high-profile elites. And so yes, the main problems we have on this planet, in this world, and even in this universe, is ignorance of our personal identity, ignorance of the reality, of the other reality, the fact that there is a supreme being who watches over us, who cares for us, and that we as creatures of that supreme being, we are all related to each other in different, in different ways. Like, I am a friend to you, and also a god brother, or a god sister, or a godfather to someone. But then the point is that these are within the peripheral arena of the material world. But ultimately, we are actually all sons or creatures of that absolute truth. So what does that mean by being sons of the same Father? Isn't it true that we are brothers? If we are all creatures of one God. But do we actually realize that? Or some of us do not even have an iota of understanding of that reality. But that is the other reality. That we are all creatures of one God, and we should live amicably in harmony on this planet. Utilize the resources that have been created, that have been generated by the Father for a collective growth. So this is lacking in society, and this is one of my major emphasis each time I go out to interact, especially with members of the academy, scholars of political science, social sciences, etc. And so yes, you're correct. This ignorance of the fact that there is an absolute truth, and we are supposed to be subservient to him, and also follow the laws of material nature. Because if we don't align ourselves, look, the whole universe is like a school or an organization or a firm that has been founded by someone. If I remember, I went to Hawaii University to faculty of management, and we went to one department. It's boldly written there, the vision, the mission statement of that faculty. Now we have to figure out, if this universe is created by someone, what is his mission statement? What is his vision? What is his goal? And if we align ourselves with the goal of the Creator, if we align ourselves with this mission of this very material universe, then we will not go astray. We will actually be working in alignment with the structural setting of the universe, of the Creator. And that will bring about unlimited joy and peace in individual lives and collective parties.
But Maharaj, there's a question that arises today. At least I've been teaching Krishna consciousness in the Caribbean area. Of course, I've lived in North America. And people would often quote their religious scriptures. And it's quite open, so we need not hide anything. That Jesus Christ is the truth, the way, and the life. No one cometh unto the Father but by him, or there is only one God, Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. this scripture anything outside of this. So there are a lot of people who have a one-way track mind. So therefore some people would say religion is the cause of the chaos in the world. There are a lot of wars and a lot of conflict because of religion. So you're saying that people are expected to understand that fatherhood of God in order to have the brotherhood of man established.
Sure.
So how would you explain from the Vedic perspective that there can be one God and at the same time there can be different religious scriptures and different concepts, and it doesn't have to necessarily be contradictory or have different objective, but the same objective? How can you reconcile that?
Yeah, before I go that, I'd like to give you a brief story to counteract the idea that religion is the cause of confusion or chaos or topsy-turvies on the planet. It is not religion, because religion means to connect with God. And the connection inherently has to be, weighted on some basic factors. And one of those factors is scriptures. Another factor is sadhus, the holy practitioners of these scriptures. And of course, sadhu, sastra, and of course the mentor. And so if we don't have that check and balance system, we will always go astray. In every religious tradition, we have to work according to the instructions of the scriptures, the instructions of the sadhus or the holy men or men and women who are practitioners of that tradition. And of course, the mentors, the gurus. If we don't have a living guru, someone who's going to instruct us, just like Jesus Christ, he had some disciples. So automatically he was their guru. But if we don't have a living mentor to guide us, and what are the symptoms of a bona fide living mentor? That's the next question. In the Vedic literature, it is mentioned, Vasha Vegam, Manasa Kroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udaru Pasta Vegam, Etam Vegam, Yo Visahita Dira, Sarvam Apimam Pritivistan Sishat. That the major symptoms of someone who is a holy man, or who is a sadhu, or who is a mentor, who is a guru, is that he has control over his sensory modalities, including the mind. The tongue, for instance, could be dangerous. The genitals could be dangerous. The belly could be dangerous. If we don't actually have control over all of our sensory modalities, we will lead our followers astray. And I like to strike a perfect example of what I have personally experienced. Now, when I was in Nigeria doing some preaching programs in the universities, I encountered a very exciting scenario. Now, in Nigeria, there have been lots of confrontation between the Muslims and the Christians in the northern part of Nigeria. What we would say is the cause of that is because of ignorance. Because why I say it's ignorance? Ignorance of their identity, of who they are, where they're coming from, the purpose of this life. Ignorance of who God is. Because I say it's ignorance because now at Nigeria's primary University of Ibadan, the head of Department of Islamic Studies is a Catholic monk.
Interesting.
Now, he is the professor and the head of Department of Islamic Studies, a Catholic priest. They are not fighting in that department. So why are they fighting outside? Isn't it due to ignorance? A Catholic monk is the one leading Muslim scholars. What have we got to say about that? I saw it. This is not a story. And I can relate to that.
Right.
So we find that the problems that we purportedly attribute to religion being the cause in society is completely a logical fallacy. It's not only a logical fallacy, it is an individualistic fallacy, and it is an ecological fallacy.
Maharaj, if you to answer this question, were you exposed from early childhood to particular teachings, what impelled you to pursue this Vedic, the teachings of the Vedic scriptures? Why? What did you find in this that made you make a radical change to dedicate your life to teach the science?
This is not a radical change, because I was inherently inclined towards, God and achieving objectives in my life rooted in God consciousness. And that is why when I was a child, I was asking so many questions about life after death. But I ask questions, I make inquiries, many inquiries from my parents, from my teachers, from my pastors, and they don't have any vivid answer to my questions. They didn't have any vivid answer to my questions, I mean to say. And my parents are from Christian background. My father is from Christian background, my mother is from Christian background. And because of my, inquiries, my probes, my mother, I remember when I was 20, my mother told me, she called me one day and told me, "Hey boy, you asked too many questions in your life. Now you're a mature guy. Go into the world and figure out answers to your questions yourself." My mother told me that. So I said, "Thank you, Mom." So I started making some inquiries. I started, investigating, reading books, searching. But again, I had a close association with a number of pastors, imams, evangelists, etc. But when it comes to philosophical questions, they can't relate to my situation. They couldn't, because they saw me as someone who is too young and asking too many big questions. But I didn't see those questions as big questions. Take for instance, I had an uncle who loved me so much, and then he died. So as a child, I was in primary school. I think I was just 11 years old or so. So I was coming home, and then my sister came to the gate to stop him from whistling. So she said, "Hey, stop whistling, that your uncle is dead." So I didn't know what it meant to be dead. So but I had she called the name, so I just went straight to his apartment. And when I went there, they were lying him on the bed, and people were surrounding him. Some people were crying. So I said, "Sister, you said uncle is gone, but that's him there." And then the other people also in the room, they said, "Oh yes, small boy, you don't know what is happening. He's gone, he's gone." I said, "But that's him there." No one could give me any vivid explanation about what death meant. And so that struck on my mind that I couldn't see him anymore. So I was wondering, when they say someone is dead, where does it really go, and what really had happened? Again, I had no vivid, detailed explications to these my inquiries from anybody. And therefore, I started searching, and when I got that authority from my mom, that gave me so much of stimulus. And then I got in touch with the Hare Krishnas. I had just one literature from them, coming back. And it's like a shower of flowers, a shower of light, that I got all my intriguing questions that were bothering me in my life, just answered with just that one literature.
Amazing.
So I visited their temple, and then I made some more inquiries, and that's how I became really captivated. And at that time, as a young adult, I was working with the judiciary and River State. That was in Port Harcourt in Nigeria. So then I was on vacation, annual vacation, so I went to the temple, stayed with the devotees, and then I became so much, interested in really helping others who were in ignorance like myself to spread this mission to them. And that's why I took the decision to become a full-time priest.
Maharaj, as we've run out of time, I'd like if you can please prescribe or recommend something for our viewers as to what will bring about the desired perfection in life for them.
Yeah, you see, whatever pursuit we have in our lives will only be speedily materialized when we root our desires in trying to fulfill the objectives of the Creator of the universe. In other words, we should try to walk in alignment with the laws of God, trying to obey and it doesn't matter in any scripture, whichever scripture you believe in, try to become a faithful follower, not just a hypocrite. I think that will help to ameliorate some of the deteriorating situations that we have experienced on the planet.
Maharaj, thank you very much for being on the program today, and I would like to thank you, our viewers, and do keep in touch for following programs with Maharaj. I am Rajarshi Das saying Hare Krishna, and do join us again next week for another presentation.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, Gayanis.
Hare Krishna.